The haunting at Blackwood Cabin. Some places have a way of holding on to the past. The air feels heavier, the shadows seem darker, and the silence isn't really silence at all. This is the story of what happened to Daniel Carter one cold October night when he stayed at Blackwood Cabin, a place known for whispers in the dark, flickering lights, and doors that lock themselves. Daniel Carter wasn't the type to believe in ghosts. To him, haunted house stories were just urban legends, exaggerated over time. He prided himself on being logical, skeptical, someone who needed proof before accepting anything supernatural. So, when his friend Josh dared him to spend the night at Blackwood Cabin, a supposedly haunted place deep in the woods, Daniel accepted without hesitation. The cabin was isolated, far from any main roads, surrounded by towering pine trees that blocked out most of the moonlight. By the time Daniel arrived, the sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky an eerie shade of dark blue. His car's headlights barely penetrated the thick fog that had started creeping in around the trees. The cabin itself looked abandoned, its wooden walls weathered, the windows caked with grime, and the front porch slightly tilted as if the ground beneath had begun to swallow it. He stepped out of the car, grabbing his flashlight and bag. The air was still, unnaturally so. Not even the usual forest sounds, no crickets, no distant rustling of leaves, just complete silence. The only sound was his own footsteps crunching against the dead leaves as he approached the door. He reached for the rusted handle and turned it. The door creaked loudly, the sound echoing inside as if the house was exhaling after being closed off for so long. Inside, the air smelled stale, mixed with something faintly metallic. The furniture was covered in dust, untouched for years. A fireplace sat at the far end of the room, its bricks blackened with old soot. A wooden rocking chair near the window faced the wall, eerily positioned as if someone had been sitting there, watching. Daniel set his bag down and pulled out a few candles, lighting them since the power in the cabin had long been shut off. The flickering light cast long shadows across the room, making everything look distorted. He shook off the uneasy feeling creeping up his spine and decided to explore. The bedroom was small, just a single bed with a torn mattress, a nightstand with an old-fashioned lamp, and a wooden dresser. He ran his fingers over the surface of the dresser, wiping away layers of dust, when suddenly, a cold gust of air brushed against the back of his neck. He spun around, expecting to see a window open, but they were all shut. There was no logical explanation for the sudden chill. Shrugging it off, he went back to the main room and settled into an old armchair, pulling out his phone. No service. Typical. He sighed, placing it on the table beside him. The candle's flame flickered violently for a moment, though there was no wind. The rocking chair in the corner, the one facing the wall, let out a soft creak. His breath hitched. Then, the whispers began. At first, it was faint, like the distant sound of someone speaking just outside. He strained his ears, his body stiff with tension. The murmurs grew clearer, though the words were impossible to make out. It was as if multiple voices were overlapping, some whispering, some almost humming. The sound sent a deep, primal fear through him, though he couldn't explain why. Then, he saw it. In the reflection of the grimy window, just over his shoulder, a tall, shadowy figure stood behind him. His heart slammed against his ribs as he turned sharply. Nothing was there. But the chair, the rocking chair, had turned slightly, no longer facing the wall. His breathing quickened. He grabbed his flashlight and shined it around the room. The whispers stopped instantly. The silence was even more terrifying. That was when he heard the sound that nearly made him collapse in fear, a long, slow scraping noise coming from the bedroom. Something was moving. Summoning every ounce of courage, he walked toward the bedroom, his hand shaking as he pushed open the door. The room looked the same, except the dresser had moved. It was now blocking the closet door. He was sure it hadn't been like that before. Had he overlooked it? Was he imagining things? Just as he stepped forward, a loud bang came from inside the closet. He stumbled back, his breath shallow, the flashlight trembling in his grip. The bang came again, louder this time. Then, the bedroom door, the one he had just walked through, slammed shut behind him. Panic surged through him as he grabbed the doorknob, twisting it desperately, but it wouldn't budge. The banging from inside the closet grew more violent. He pressed himself against the door, his mind racing. He had to get out. Then, a voice. A whisper, right against his ear. "You shouldn't be here." He didn't scream. He couldn't. His voice was trapped in his throat, his body frozen in pure terror. Then, as if an invisible force had released him, the door unlocked on its own. He didn't hesitate, he ran. Bursting out of the bedroom, he grabbed his keys from the table and sprinted toward the front door. As he reached for the handle, a violent force slammed it shut in front of him. He pulled with everything he had, finally, it gave way. He stumbled outside, nearly falling off the porch in his desperation. As he reached his car, fumbling with the keys, he risked one last glance at the cabin. And that's when he saw it. In the window, staring directly at him, was a figure. Dark. Hollow. Smiling. It didn't move. It didn't blink. But Daniel felt its presence drilling into him, as if it had marked him. He didn't stick around to find out what would happen next. He jumped into his car, started the engine, and sped down the dirt road, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. He never went back to Blackwood Cabin. But sometimes, in the dead of night, when the world is silent, he swears he still hears the whispers. If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more real, spine-tingling horror stories that will keep you up at night. Share your own eerie experiences in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. Stay safe, and remember, some places never let go.